Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're unpacking part 4 of a seriously fantastic 8-part tutorial created by Virtualization Options LLC. They're a Colorado-based technology research and advisory group, and they've put together pretty much the ultimate guide for system administrators and tech support folks who are managing the massive migration from IPv4 to IPv6. Now, I'm just going to tell you a hard truth right out of the gate here. If you already know how to troubleshoot an IPv4 network, well, that's great. But your deeply ingrained IPv4 muscle memory, it's about to become your absolute biggest obstacle. We literally have to reset your entire baseline.
Okay, let's dive into this. We are going to work through a bottom-up diagnostic roadmap today. We'll be covering unlearning IPv4 muscle memory, addresses, neighbors and gateways, the ICMP v6 and MTU rule, tunnels and translation mechanisms, and finally, diagnosing VPN and client issues. Section 1. Unlearning IPv4 muscle memory. Like I just mentioned, IPv6 isn't just IPv4 with, longer numbers. It is a fundamental paradigm shift. In the IPv4 world, we are so used to this single IP mindset. You look at a network interface, you see one address, like 192.168.1.10, and you're good to go. But in IPv6, you are going to see multiple addresses on a single interface, and I cannot stress this enough. That is entirely normal. You're typically going to have a link local address starting with FI8, a global unicast address, and often these temporary privacy addresses all coexisting at the exact same time. So if you're doing support and you see 3 IP addresses on one adapter, do not try to troubleshoot it like it's a bug. It's totally by design. It's like a single node just explodes into a multi-address architecture. But there's way more to this transition than just the addresses themselves. In this new environment, broadcast addresses, the classic 255.255.255.255 we used to ping all the time, they are completely gone. Poof! They've been entirely replaced by multicast. On top of that, NAT, network address translation, is largely absent. Basically, every device in an IPv6 environment is potentially globally routable, which fundamentally changes how we have to design firewalls and approach security. Moving right along to Section 2, addresses, neighbors, and gateways. Now that we've got our mindset right, let's see how devices actually go about claiming these IPs. In IPv6, when a device wants an address, it goes through a process called Duplicate Address Detection, or DAD. And no, it doesn't tell bad jokes. Step 1, the host kicks off DAD by sending a neighbor solicitation for the address it wants. Step 2, if another host is already using it, boom, conflict detected. And step 3, the interface drops into a DAD failed state, which means zero global connectivity. A super common culprit for this that you'll run into, cloned MAC addresses in virtual machines. So if your VM is mysteriously offline, run IP-6 address show and look for that exact DAD failed flag. Next up, how do we actually find our way out of the local network? Enter Router Advertisements, or RAs. This is the mandatory protocol mechanism that carries the default gateway for IPv6 hosts. This is a really big shift from what we're used to. If an IPv6 host is missing its default gateway, it is almost certainly an RA issue, not a DHCP failure. Unlike IPv4, there is no explicit gateway renewal. Oh, and here's a quick pro tip. If a router sends out an RA with a lifetime of 0, it is explicitly telling hosts, hey, stop using me as a gateway. Now, to find local peers, IPv6 relies on the Neighbor Discovery Protocol, or NDP. NDP completely replaces our old buddy ARP. But just like ARP, sometimes that cache gets stale and you've got to flush it out. For Linux, you'll use IP-6 nay flush dev eth0. For Windows, it's net ship interface IPv6 delete neighbors. And for Cisco routers, just run clear IPv6 neighbors. Keep in mind, though, NDP uses multicast extensively, so your switches really need MLD snooping enabled, otherwise they're just going to flood this traffic absolutely everywhere. Section 3, the ICMP v6 and MTU rule. This brings us to what I consider the absolute climax of IPv6 troubleshooting. This is where overly aggressive firewalls cause the most pain. Let me set the scene with a highly specific, incredibly frustrating scenario that you have probably battled. You're trying to connect to a server. You run a basic ping, and it succeeds perfectly. Great. But the exact moment you try to open a large SSH session, load a heavy HTTPS page, or copy a file, the connection just silently hangs right after the TCP handshake. So why on earth does this happen?
Now, what's really interesting about this is that the answer is Path MTU discovery failure, or PMTU failure. The culprit is almost always firewalls blocking outbound ICMPv6 Type 2 messages. See, in IPv6, routers do not fragment packets for you. If a router gets a packet that's larger than the next link's MTU, it drops it, but it's supposed to generate an ICMPv6 Type 2 packet too big message back to the sender. If your firewall drops that Type 2 message, the sender literally never learns it needs to send smaller packets. So the small ping fits fine, but the large SSH packet gets dropped silently, breaking the entire network path.
And that hammers home the golden rule of IPv6 firewalls. ICMPv6 is absolutely not optional. You must strictly permit these specific types. Type 1 for destination unreachable, Type 2 for packet too big, Type 3 for time exceeded, and Types 133 through 137 for NDP messages. These are strictly mandatory. Period. If your security team blindly blocks all ICMP traffic like they used to do in the IPv4 days, they are fundamentally breaking your IPv6 network.
Section 4. Tunnels and translation mechanisms.
Let's transition over to the edge cases and middle boxes, those messy spots where IPv4 and IPv6 are forced to interact. Because, let's be real, a pure IPv6 world is still a work in progress. When an IPv6-only client needs to talk to an IPv4-only server, we usually rely on NAT64 and DNS64 working together. NAT64 handles the actual packet translation at the gateway, while DNS64 kind of tricks the client by synthesizing an IPv6 AAA record for an IPv4-only hostname. But listen up, here is a massive warning label. If your applications have hard-coded IPv4 literal addresses, like trying to connect directly to 1.2.3.4, they will completely bypass DNS64. The synthesis never happens, NAT64 is bypassed, and the application connection will just outright fail.
You might also run into manual tunnels like 6 to 4, which encapsulate IPv6 packets inside IPv4 using IP protocol 41. First off, be aware that 6 to 4 Anycast tunnels are totally deprecated. Avoid them in production. As for 6 and 4 manual tunnels, they frequently fail for one of two reasons. Either a NAT device in the past just blocks protocol 41 entirely because it doesn't have port numbers, or, you guessed it, an MTU issue. Wrapping that packet adds a 20-byte IPv4 header, which immediately reduces your effective IPv6 MTU to 1480 bytes. If you don't account for that overhead, you are right back to those silent hangs we talked about.
And finally, Section 5, diagnosing VPN and client issues. For this last part, we're going to focus on the end-user side of the equation, looking specifically at the headaches caused by split tunnels and mobile device quirks. VPNs are honestly notorious for mishandling IPv6. If your VPN doesn't explicitly route IPv6, user traffic will just bypass the VPN entirely. That creates a split tunnel leak that exposes their real IP and completely bypasses your corporate security. Or, on the flip side, the client might just block all IPv6, causing sites to fail. To fix this, you have to push a /0 default route to tunnel IPv6 traffic. Also, if users are reporting random application failures that seem to change depending on which DNS server answers, you've got a split DNS issue. Make sure the VPN is pushing the correct internal DNS server and configure those split DNS rules properly. When you're supporting mobile clients, troubleshooting can be super tricky because operating systems like iOS aggressively rotate their privacy addresses per network or even per connection. But I have a rapid-fire diagnostic tip for you. If you look at an iOS or Android device's Wi-Fi settings and it is only showing a link local address, the one starting with FE80:::, and there's no global unicast address, you instantly know the problem. It means the router advertisement was never received by that device.
Speaking of router advertisements, pretty much anyone can spin up a machine that accidentally starts broadcasting them, effectively hijacking your local network. So the crucial point is this: RA Guard is your absolute best defense. Turn on RA Guard on your switch access ports to kill these rogue announcements right at the switch level. On top of that, it's just good practice to isolate your virtual machine traffic on separate VLANs. And if you aren't actively using it, explicitly disable IPv6 on Docker Bridge networks by modifying that daemon.json file. Let's tie this whole shebang together with explicit testing. In a modern dual-stack environment, IPv4 will seamlessly and completely invisibly take over if IPv6 fails. The browser just falls back, the user doesn't even notice, but your IPv6 deployment is technically broken. you absolutely cannot rely on a simple web browser test. You need explicit tool flags. Use commands like curl-6 and curl-4 to independently isolate and prove which protocol is actually successfully passing traffic.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. I want to leave you with a rather provocative question to ponder. Is your firewall configuration stuck in the IPv4 era, silently breaking your IPv6 traffic? We've just seen how ignoring the rules of ICMPv6, mismanaging router advertisements, and treating IPv6 interfaces like legacy IPv4 connections can completely cripple a network. So I challenge you, log into your firewalls today, audit your ICMPv6 rules, check those extension header policies. Thanks for learning with me today, and hey, good luck out there on the network.